Your partner just asked if you needed help with dinner. You said no. You didn't even think about it. Your body answered before your brain did. Somewhere underneath, a quiet voice said, "It's just easier if I do it myself." Later tonight, you'll be exhausted. And a smaller voice, the one you don't like hearing, will whisper, "Why does no one ever help me?" But you already know the answer. You never asked. Hi, my name is Mallorie, a mom to 3 beautiful children, 4, 2, and 7 months. And what you're about to learn isn't about asking for help. It's about why your nervous system decided, a long time ago, that asking wasn't safe, and why motherhood is the thing that finally exposed the cost of that decision. This isn't a productivity video. This is about a pattern that's running your life longer than you've been a mother. Here's what I wish someone had told me years ago. When you refuse help, your body isn't being stubborn. It's protecting you from 3 specific things. Disappointment, because help that doesn't come hurts worse than never asking. You learned that asking builds hope, and hope, when it's ignored, builds something harder to name. 2, judgment, because accepting help invites opinions you didn't request, someone else's way of doing things, someone else's timeline, someone else's critique dressed up as assistance. And number 3 is loss of control, because if someone else does it, you can't guarantee the outcome, and outcomes you can't control feel like danger. Your nervous system learned a simple rule. If I need nothing, nothing can be taken away. That's not pride, that's not stubbornness, that's protection, built by a brain that was trying to keep you safe. Here's why this isn't a personality flaw. Researchers have studied this for decades. They call it avoidant attachment. When a child learns that caregivers are unreliable, dismissive, or emotionally unavailable, the child adapts. They stop reaching. They become radically self-reliant. This doesn't require dramatic neglect. Self-reliance gets approval. So they become low maintenance to stay connected. You didn't choose this pattern. Your nervous system chose it for you before you had words for what was happening. And it worked until it didn't. You were not bad at receiving. You were trained to survive without it. But if you want to understand how deep this pattern actually runs and what it's costing you that you haven't named yet, please stay. This next part is the most important content that people skip. Here's where it gets uncomfortable. You don't just avoid asking for help. You've built an entire identity around not needing it. Capable, reliable, the one who handles things, the one that people lean on because, well, you never lean back. And here's the problem. No one talks about when your worth is tied to what you carry. You can't put anything down because putting it down doesn't feel like rest. It feels like losing yourself. Let me ask you something. If you stop being the one who holds everything together, who would you be? That question is terrifying, and that terror is exactly why you keep carrying. Here's something even harder to admit. There's a payoff to never asking for help. You get to be the competent one, the one who doesn't fall apart, the one who, even when everything is chaos, somehow manages. There's identity in that, maybe even a quiet superiority you didn't want to name. The cost of that payoff is loneliness, but loneliness feels safer than disappointment. So you keep choosing it. There's a grief underneath this pattern. And it's not dramatic. It's grief for the mom you thought you'd be if you had support. Grief for the version of yourself who could rest without earning it. Grief for the fantasy that if you just kept being strong, eventually someone would notice. You keep thinking, once things slow down, I'll feel better. But things don't slow down, and the grief stays unpaid. You're not just tired. You're mourning something you never got to have. Here's the part that stings. You are surrounded. You are relied on. You are admired. And you are deeply, quietly alone. Because no one leans on the person who never leans. No one checks on the mom who always says she's fine. No one offers help to someone who's already proven she doesn't need it. You've trained everyone around you to believe you've got it handled. And now you're drowning in the system you built. And here's the cruelest part. Sometimes help is offered. Your partner says, I can do that. Your mom says, let me take the kids. A friend says, what do you need? And your body tightens. You say, no, it's fine. I got it. That moment proves something important. This isn't about availability, it's about your capacity to receive. Your nervous system rejected the help before your brain could consider it, because receiving still feels like danger. When this pattern stays unnamed, it doesn't go away, it leaks. You snap at your kids over small things, not because you're angry at them, but because you're overloaded and no one's coming to help. You feel rage at unhelpful help because when someone finally offers, they do it wrong and it confirms what you already believed. You shut down when support shows up because your body doesn't know what to do with it. And underneath all of it, resentment, you feel guilt for feeling because you chose this, right? You chose motherhood. You don't get to complain. That thought is a trap. Choosing motherhood doesn't mean you choose to do it completely alone. Here's a cycle no one names. You're overwhelmed. You tell yourself you shouldn't be overwhelmed. So you push harder. You burn out. You snap. Then you feel ashamed. And the shame makes you push harder. You're not stuck in a discipline problem. You're stuck in a nervous system loop that's been running since before your kids were born. One more thing. This pattern doesn't just live in your mind. It lives in your body. Chronic tension in your shoulders. Shallow breathing you don't notice anymore. A jaw that's always slightly clenched. Your body never learned how to stand down. It learned how to endure. That's why rest doesn't restore you. That's why vacations don't fix it. That's why you can sleep 8 hours and still wake up exhausted. You're not tired because you're weak. You're tired because you've never actually been off duty. Let me be very clear about something. This is not a stubborn mom. This is not a prideful mom. This is a hyper-adapted mom. You weren't taught how to ask for space without guilt, let someone help without correcting them, receive support without earning it first, rest without calling it lazy. So you taught yourself to survive without any of it. And that worked for a while. But motherhood broke the system because you can't outwork sleep deprivation. You can't optimize your way out of being needed 24 hours a day. You can't be strong enough through years of constant emotional labor. Motherhood didn't create this pattern, it exposed it. It took a system built on self-efficiency and put it under pressure it was never designed to handle. You don't need to unlearn independence. You need to expand what feels safe. The goal isn't to become someone who needs more. It's to become someone whose body believes that needing isn't dangerous. One more thing. You spent your whole life being the one who adapts, who adjusts, who figures it out quietly, who makes it work so no one else has to worry. You're allowed to stop. You're allowed to let someone do it differently without fixing it afterward. You're allowed to ask before you're drowning, not just at the point of collapse. You're allowed to be seen, not as the strong one, but as the human one. The goal isn't to need more. It's to stop believing that needing costs you something. Receiving doesn't start with asking. It starts with not blocking. So let's start there. When you stop carrying everything alone, 3 things start to shift. First, you notice when help is offered, and instead of refusing automatically, your body clenches before your brain catches up. You pause. You let it in. Even if it's imperfect, not because you're weak, because your nervous system finally learned that receiving doesn't mean collapse. Second, the quiet bitterness you didn't want to admit, it softens, because when you stop absorbing everything alone, there's nothing left to resent. The weight just distributes. Third, and this is the one that matters the most, your children learn that love means self-assurance. They're watching how much space you allow yourself. They're learning what needs are acceptable. They're deciding right now whether asking for help is safe. You're not just healing yourself. You're interrupting a pattern that could have gone on for another generation. You're still you, still capable, still strong, still the one who can handle hard things. You're just not alone anymore. If this resonated, send it to a mom who never asks for anything. She won't ask you to. Here's what I want you to know. You now understand why you don't ask for help. Your nervous system, childhood patterns, a body that learned needing was dangerous. But understanding alone doesn't rewire the pattern. You can't think your way out of survival response. If you want to actually break the cycle, to stop proving your worth through exhaustion, to feel supported without guilt, to raise kids who believe they're allowed to need, this isn't about being perfect. It's about being aware. Because the cycle doesn't break by managing your anxiety better. It breaks when you understand where it came from and choose something different. So if you're sitting here thinking, okay, maybe I do need to look at where this comes from, I want you to imagine something for a second. What would it feel like to not yell for an entire week? Not because you're holding it in, not because you're clenching your jaw through bedtime, but because the trigger just didn't fire. What would it feel like to actually enjoy them again? To be present at the park instead of scrolling to escape? To feel yourself, not just mom? That's not a fantasy. That's what happens when you heal the pattern instead of managing the symptoms. And that's exactly what we do inside the Calm Parenting Method. Here's what I know about you. You've read the parenting books. You've listened to the podcasts. You've screenshotted the Instagram tips and tried the gentle parenting scripts. And some of it helped for a minute, but you're still here because deep down you know this isn't a strategy problem, it's a root problem, and you can't organize or optimize your way out of a wound you never addressed. This course isn't about giving you more techniques. It's about understanding why you're triggered in the first place and rewiring those patterns at the root. We go back gently, not to blame anyone, but to understand what you learned about love, anger, control, and good enough. Then we rebuild. Your triggers, why they fire, and how to change that. Your nervous system, teaching it that you're safe, even when they're melting down. Your identity, reconnecting to who you were before you lost yourself in motherhood. In 90 days, you go from reactive to regulated, guilty to grounded, disconnected to actually present. What's wrong with me to I understand myself now. And here's what I want you to hear. This isn't selfish. You're investing in your health, and that's the most generous thing you can do for your kids because they don't need the perfect mom. They need a mom who's not drowning, a mom who can stay calm when they can't, a mom who breaks the cycle instead of passing it on. This is the work that changes families, not just you, them, and their kids someday. The course opens in May of 2026, but the waitlist is open now. Click on the link below. You've been trying to be better through willpower. Let's try something different. Let's actually heal it. I'll see you on the inside.